Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter.
Nice to be here.
Oh, hi.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining me, Tucker. I'm your host, Tanner, and as I previously introduced, this is Tucker Hazel. He's joining me as my fellow box office enthusiast to talk about the box office ballyhoo that went down during the month of February 2024.
This might be one of the most ballyhooful months we've ever lived through.
Is ballyhoo, though, is that like lots of excitement or very little excitement?
It's just funny.
Yeah.
It's just a silly little month we got to talk about here.
Yeah, one of the shorter ones. Though we did have a leap day this year. We'll get
slightly longer than your average.
Yeah.
February.
True. That's very true. But anyway, Tucker, before we get into all the movies and how they performed at the box office that came out in February 2024, I'd like to invite you, dear viewer, to go ahead and, subscribe to Backlot Banter if you're not already. We pump out all sorts of these sort of box office recaps, movie reviews, and things of that nature, discussions, general sorts of things on a pretty regular basis. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe. If you want more of that discussion, join our Discord server. That link's in the description there. You can talk about movies, video games, television, barbells.
Barbells.
Yeah.
What did you say, Bardell?
No, I don't know what I said. I think I just put the emphasis on the word weird. We're going to do a loose episode of Backlot Banter this month, folks. And let's just get started, shall we, Tucker?
It matches the loose attitude that studios had towards putting out movies this month.
That's a fair point.
It's like, yeah, I guess. I guess we got to put this out somewhere. And
there's a lot of I guess we have to put this out mentality to some of the releases this month, including, Tucker, the movies that ended up in our top 10 domestic openings of the month. Topping off that list is to very few people's prediction, I would say, is Bob Marley One Love.
This is probably the most unusual number one opening of any month we've talked about, because almost every month has some sort of studio tentpole title that fits into certain kinds of genres. Comedy, sci-fi, action. These are the things that pull a lot of people out into theaters. But for whatever reason, Bob Marley One Love just really hit the right spot.
Yeah.
It is, and alongside Madame Web, they are both helped by having a 6-day opening window, which is what we're counting here, because they released on Valentine's Day, which means they had Wednesday through Monday, actually.
President's Day.
So obviously, the 3-day weekend of Bob Marley One Love is much, much smaller than this.
Is they really even a holiday for people anymore? I don't think it is.
I have no idea.
I didn't have the day off.
But
comment down below if you had the day off on President's Day.
But this is a really big surprise.
Yeah,
and I do have to give pretty big props to Paramount and this movie for being like one of the only popular movies of the first 2 months of this year, and showing compared to the relative weakness of Madame Web that there are other things that people will go to see and spend a lot of money on. I mean, in a 6-day window, almost $50 million, and it has actually held pretty well since then. Bob Marley One Love, opening number one. Round of applause to Bob.
That's true.
Good job, Bob.
Good job all around. Number 2 was a movie that you had mentioned, Tucker. Madame Web was $23.5 million. Again, operating in that 5-day to Sunday, 6-day to President's Day. Argylle following third with 17.4. Demon Slayer and the Hashira training arc. I had to really shrink down the logo there. Following at number 4 with 11.5. Then rounding out the top 5 is Ordinary Angels with 6.1.
And then everything else.
Yeah. Some things that we thought would pop up in the top 5, as we'll get to in just a moment.
But we're very wrong.
So number 6, they're still pumping out these like The Chosen TV premiering in theaters. I think that first episode, number 6, was episodes 1 through 3 of season 4. Then you have Lisa Frankenstein. Then you have The Chosen season 4, episode 4 through 6.
Season 4?
Season 4.
Oh wow! Holy shit!
Drive-Away Dolls and Land of Bad.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about a couple of these, but I do have to say this month has really opened my eyes to something. And well, now let's compare it to what our predictions were, which is we are very biased.
Are we, Tucker?
But our biases for the top domestic opening films usually don't really matter, because the things that we go to see and are exposed to through trailers and through talking to our friends, those are usually the movies that open in at least those top 5
The
spots,
genres
if
that
not
we
deeper.
care about too.
Yeah. Well, we kind of see everything, but
We didn't see Ordinary Angels.
big studio films with big names, usually genre movies, but having both Demon Slayer and Ordinary Angels pop into that top 5, knocking out. You actually predicted Demon Slayer, but knocking out 2 other movies that we had seen many, many more trailers for. I mean, we never saw an Ordinary Angels trailer. We never saw a Demon Slayer trailer. But it shows that there are still these corners of the theatrical marketplace in Angel Studios, faith-based conservative films with Ordinary Angels, and anime that can have a strong opening compared to things, studio comedies from creators that we like, that frankly did really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, of course, these 5 will be the ones. Of course, Drive Away Dolls and Fleas of Frankenstein. I haven't seen trailers for these. They've got names and faces attached to them. But no. There are other things that are more popular. And so I think going into the future, especially when we have lighter months, I need to look for the things that I'm not going to see that have a stronger fan base that can open them a little bit.
You need to put your spade in the ground and kind of dig around for some things, your Ordinary Angels and things of that nature. But anyway, Tucker, I wanted to go ahead and compare and contrast what happened here to what happened in reality, what we predicted versus what actually happened. So, for me personally, at least, I predict the numbers every month. So I had said that Madame Web on the 5-6 day, whatever we want to say, would make $23 million, fucking dead on the number there, baby.
Yeah, congratulations.
I also said it would be number 1 at the box office, so, a demerit there, I suppose. I said number 2 would be Argylle, opening to $21 million. Overshot it there a little bit.
Yeah, but it's not too far off.
Yeah. The real thorn in my side here is me saying Bob Marley One Love would open to $18 million on the 5-day. And it opened to, in fact, 46.
Yeah.
So, like I said, did other people see this coming? I don't know. I certainly did not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember what the projections were for this, because frankly, I wasn't paying attention, and this is the only major theatrical release that I didn't actually see this past month. But neither of us had it at our number 1. We were kind of fighting between Argylle and Madame Web, and I think that one of the things that we sort of quibbled about at the end of that last episode was Argylle versus Madame Web, and which one would open a little bit higher. Obviously, we had disagreement on that, but Madame Web underperforming and Argylle also underperforming, but Madame Web especially underperforming if you look at it in that 3-day, which I was actually not predicting with the 5-day in mind for those 2 films. But if you compare Argylle's 3-day to Madame Web's 3-4 day whatever, it's really, really close.
It is. They're within $200,000 or $300,000 of each other. I think they're both in the 17s there.
So while we had a little bit of a spat at the end of last episode, I think we can call it a wash.
Yeah, we call it a wash.
Both of those movies failed.
They did.
We both made very bad predictions.
Right. And following it up with Lisa Frankenstein, I said it would make 12. I think it actually ended up making 2.5.
Yeah. I think it's 3.5.
Okay. And then Demon Slayer, I said would make 10. Ended up making, what did I say, 11? Yeah, 11.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So pretty close. Pretty close with those as well. But ordering a little off if you take it into account the whole month, I suppose.
Yeah. But Tanner, this is a nice rainbow of movies.
Oh.
Ranging the qualities,
no overlap. A lot of times we have a bunching, but no, just a nice spectrum here.
Ass spread. The ass is completely spread this month.
Maybe we could have had a movie at the very top there. That would have been nice.
I mean, we didn't see Ordinary Angels, but it actually was incredibly well received. A+,
we'll get to that.
A+ cinema score and over 80 on Rotten Tomatoes is really, really good, especially in comparison to everything else this month. That even though Bob Marley One Love has a very good cinema score, I think does contribute to the fact that it has been holding and actually will end up being solidly profitable for Paramount. Everything else just kind of down in the doldrums.
Yeah.
Not only in cinema score but also in Rotten Tomatoes. These are just some really poorly received movies that opened low and are not holding well and no one liked. This is a dire month, and we will specifically get to that when we get to our comparisons to to last February.
Oh, yes.
Averages and all
Very
that.
exciting. Okay, very exciting, Tucker. But yeah, I mean, just it's aesthetically pleasing to see this,
It
but
is,
also
yeah.
not pleasing to the cinematic diet, I suppose.
Yeah, and this is easily, I think, the biggest spread of cinema scores that I've
Yeah.
ever had to
Oh,
put
yeah.
on here.
Yeah.
This is 5 separate cinema scores. Usually they're bunched to a 2 or like 3 or 4 range. So I had to like make them a little bit smaller than I usually have to, and but also I think the two releases that would fit into the traditional mindset of these are the only things that are big and popular. Madame Web and Argylle are the lowest reviewed movies in both areas. Worst received on CinemaScore and Rotten Tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both really bad. They're both incredibly terrible movies. So
Yes.
I agree.
I agree with this by and large. But Tucker, let's talk about Argylle.
Yeah.
This was supposed to
Twisted
be.
Mind of Matthew Vaughn.
That's right. This was supposed to be the first big movie of the year, wasn't it? And like we had Beekeeper and Mean Girls actually did quite well, but this was like the first blockbuster of the year.
Lots of big names.
Yes, I mean an incredible ensemble cast here of performers who are perhaps not used to the best of their abilities. But Tucker, we already reviewed this movie.
Yeah. No, we didn't. We didn't
fuck,
review
you're
Argylle.
right.
We literally did not review Argylle. We talked about it a lot, actually.
Every other time I would be correct in saying that.
No,
but
we did not do it this time.
Yeah.
But if you are curious what we would have given Argylle, there's our average score at the bottom. A pure red, bad
Ruby red.
2.0 out of 10.
Yeah.
Holy shit, what a bad movie.
So anyway, Tucker, this movie had a budget of apparently, reportedly $200 million.
Yes and no. And I put the little question mark there because
Okay.
what Matthew Vaughn has said is $200 million is the what Apple paid for the rights to produce this film and the book rights and all of that stuff, and to presumably make it into a franchise, which is not going to happen now. But I don't think we actually know the actual production budget of Argylle, and I think that maybe Apple just doesn't really care. I mean, this exact $200 million number has been given to all 3 of the last releases from Apple.
That's a fair
Napoleon,
point,
Killers
actually.
of the Flower Moon, and Argylle all have $200 million, quote unquote, on the dot. Of course, that's not actually true, but I think it's a little bit lower than that in reality, what they actually spent to make the movie.
Yeah.
But regardless, Apple is losing a ton of money on Argylle. As of now, sitting at less than $100 million worldwide. It's out of theaters at this point, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Or
so.
really so close to like it's not going to touch 100.
No.
Which means that they are probably losing $300 million.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
And also depending if the $200 million acquisition rights compared to the budget, are those the same number? Are they separate? Because then they might be losing like $400 million or $500 million on this thing. This is a legendary flop.
Oh yeah, I mean of legendary proportions as well. You have noted there that Apple acquired the rights for this back in 2021 for somewhere between $200 and $250 million.
It's all up in the air.
Yeah.
But how about this? Regardless of what the number is, it's a failure.
Yeah.
So who cares at the end of the day?
They barely turned a profit based on purely the advertising budget for this film. Mm-hmm. And I guess always with these streaming movies or these streaming produced films, the thinking is that once it goes to our platform, it'll drive subscribers there. Argylle's not doing that.
No,
reviewed incredibly poorly. It didn't get people interested from the outset, so why would it do so at home?
Yeah, and I think Apple's kind of been put in a weird spot where I think that is the right mindset in one way, in that they are certainly of the streaming service forward companies putting their films out in a lot of theaters.
Right.
That is the right mindset to have because it has been shown time and time again with movies that then go to streaming, they are much more popular when they hit streaming if they were well received and popular beforehand. But Apple has not succeeded with any of their major theatrical films in making that something that actually drives subscriptions. If people weren't subscribing for the new Ridley Scott or Martin Scorsese movie, they're certainly not doing it for fucking Argylle.
I guess I don't know what the Apple subscriber numbers are looking like. Actually, for all I know, the mood and the temperature check on Apple TV Plus is quite positive. Actually, that it's a high-profile service that actually doesn't cost that much, all things considered. You know,
They're
certainly
also giving it away like candy.
exactly, certainly less than like Netflix is running somebody nowadays. They have high.
And it's the only place you can watch Argylle.
It's the only place you can. Well, you can't watch it there now.
Well, it's the only place you'll be
Eventually.
able to watch Argylle.
It has not an overabundance of material, but high production value TV shows and films.
Sure.
And actually, for like, if you're a nerd about things, is one of the very few that streams at a high bit rate, regardless of your subscription package or whatever. So yeah, you're not getting your streaming compression like you are on Netflix or Max or anything.
Now they just need to, at least when it comes to Argylle, work on the quality of the movies that they're releasing to then drive subscribers.
They got Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon's pretty solid. Yeah.
But this is just across the board, massive failure.
They got a couple other ones coming out this year, and some stuff in the pipeline that we'll get to in news as well. So yeah, I think Tucker, I think Apple's gonna be okay.
Yes, because obviously this movie, their subscription services is not what drives their revenue. So it's really no water off their back. But I want them to make profitable movies and more movies and lower budget movies and contribute to the cinematic landscape. And Argylle was an attempt at that. An attempt. That's the best thing you can say.
Should we rap a little bit about the sequel prospects? I know you said that, but
it's not happening, dude.
But like this attempt. There's this attempt on Apple's part, or I guess Matthew Vaughn's part.
Yeah, it's mostly Vaughn.
To make this like a multimedia, multi-film franchise with prequels and spin-offs and sequels.
And TV shows and novels.
Yeah. It's really fucking weird, because he's also doing this with Kick-Ass. I'm not sure if you saw this headline recently, where he has a film in the can, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a film in the can that belongs to his new Kick-Ass universe timeline.
Oh.
So
I've never seen either of those movies, so
he's making a trilogy essentially of films. He has one film in the can that apparently has been finished for like going on 8 or 9 months. I would say. He has one film that is.
Wait, what is this movie? How do I not know about this?
I don't know. He has one film that's in production right now.
Okay.
And he's looking down the barrel of starting production on like the actual Kick-Ass remake.
Reboot.
It's all part of a Kick-Ass reboot, but these two films do not star Kick-Ass as the character.
Oh, wait, and then the one that's shooting now is a Kick-Ass tangential movie as well?
Yes, and
goddamn.
He's going to make the actual like titled Kick-Ass remake.
And you know what, Matthew Vaughn? Perfect time to make a bunch of superhero movies.
I agree. Hang on,
people can't wait.
Tucker, let me find the details on this. Let me remind myself what they're called.
What's interesting about Argylle is that it does seem like Matthew Vaughn wants to tie things in a strange way, and Argylle is actually a Kingsman movie.
That's true.
It is not marketed as such, and I don't know if it'll ever pay off as such, but I mean, he's been making films that are not particularly theatrically successful for 5 or 6 years now. And The King's Man also didn't make a lot of money, and also didn't make money, and also was received poorly. Only slightly better than Argylle, but the great thing about Matthew Vaughn, both the scariest thing and the greatest thing about Matthew Vaughn, is he funds his own movies. He has his own production company, and he sells them off to other studios. And so, even if no one liked Argylle and no one liked The King's Man, if he has this idea and he can get people to fund them, it doesn't matter what the studios say. He can get these movies made.
Yeah.
So we actually might see an Argylle sequel or whatever the fucking Henry Cavill thing was, or the way that it ties into Kingsman. We might see that in a film at some point, even though this lost an absolute ton of money.
Okay. So from what I can tell, also, by the way, just looking at his IMDb, Matthew Vaughn apparently has 11 films that he's producing. Upcoming.
Oh yeah, he's producing things. Yes. As well.
So that's what I was talking about. I should probably clarify. These like Kick-Ass remake things are things that he's producing.
He's not directing all of them.
No, the one that is completed is called School Fight. The production note on IMDb says that film is completed. It's done.
Great. When is that going to come out?
I don't know. the next one that is in development that they are apparently shooting right now is called The Stuntman.
Okay, I actually did hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's the one that sort of spurred on the headline that taught me about this stuff. And then he is looking down the barrel of probably directing himself the Kick-Ass remake. And then this will all be an interconnected universe. And if you know anything about the Oh God, Tucker, what's the guy's name who wrote the Kick-Ass comic?
Is that Mark Millar?
Yes, Mark Miller, or Millar, or whatever. If you know anything about that stuff, we're spending a lot of time on the Argyle slide, but that's okay. And the
They're
Matthew
actually
Vaughn
very
of it all.
similar, and they want their shit to interconnect and all that.
Well, yes, because Mark Millar just interconnected all of those stories and rebooted it with Superior and stuff like that. Matthew Vaughn is making a Superior movie, apparently.
Really? Okay.
And so I'm like, there's this weird thing that's going on where he's also connecting all of his properties. I'm sure Kingsman and Argyle will be connected to Kick-Ass and School Fight and Stuntman somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Godspeed. You know?
I mean, it's nuts.
Godspeed.
It's a crazy thing.
Keep losing money.
Only someone with a truly twisted mind could think of something like this. Yeah. All right, let's move on, Tucker.
What about the twisted mind of Zelda Williams?
And Diablo Cody?
Yeah, Lisa Frankenstein at a rollicking probably $10 million by the end of its theatrical run. I mean, actually, I have no idea if it's going to continue to grow internationally. The fact that it only has $37,000 is just funny.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like one theater's worth of money in the U.S. But it had a full wide release.
Yes.
3,100 in theaters.
Yeah, I had to double check that. I was like, oh, is this something that only played in like, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 theaters? No, just a full wide release for Lisa Frankenstein here.
Yeah.
So yes. And then, we just also have, you have a little origin of Lisa Frankenstein note here, which I find interesting.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that this was a pun, but Lisa Frank is a school supply company.
Oh,
they make
sure.
like color pencils and shit.
Oh, sure.
And so that's what inspired Lisa Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yep.
Neat. Cool, I suppose. Yes. And sorry, a little bit of spit back there. Opened incredibly small. It was, I mean, I don't know why I thought this would be bigger. I think I said this would make $12 million.
I mean, I think you were just banking on horror being something that draws people, and also it being a romance movie released around Valentine's Day. Obviously, that's what they were banking on.
Absolutely,
in both ways.
Yeah.
But it didn't pay off. I mean,
No.
Luckily, $13 million budget. That's nothing.
Yeah.
It's fine. They're not losing a ton of money. I don't
No.
think this kills anyone's careers.
Oh, no.
But it certainly doesn't help them. It's just kind of like that was like a little bit of a road bump.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a great note for Zelda Williams to start off on, as this is her directorial debut here. But Diablo Cody will probably continue to get work, and I certainly hope so. But yeah, I mean, it opened behind Argyle. When you're opening behind Argyle, 1 week later, Argyle, bad press Argyle.
Week 2, big drop off Argyle.
Yeah, and you're still opening behind it, and then you fall to 9th in your second weekend. Of course, it had some competition against like Madame Web and Bob Marley. Yeah.
So interesting competition there.
Yeah, but it's just bad stuff to see that level of, first of all, immediate disinterest, and then harsh drop off.
Yeah, and Tanner, I don't have this on here, but
Okay.
it is one of the top 10 lowest wide openings.
Oh, really?
Of all time.
Yeah.
Worst openings in 3,000 plus theaters. Now, almost all of these are post-pandemic, or are pandemic or close to after the pandemic, that no one cared about. And
Right.
So we're going to go through these just for fun.
Okay, let's do
one of them is Hoot. That opened during the pandemic.
Hoot?
Yeah, it's just during literally 2020,
okay.
It was open enough. It went to a couple theaters, but then 3,000 theaters, but no one went to see it. Reminiscence.
Yep.
Which we watched
Day and date. Yeah.
Cop Shop.
Yeah.
The Rhythm Section, which I haven't heard of, but whatever. Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Sure.
Big George Foreman. Firestarter. Something called The Seeker. The Dark is Rising. I've never heard of that.
All right.
Lisa Frankenstein and Tanner. The seventh lowest opening to over 3,000 theaters is Babylon.
Really? Wow.
And Lisa Frankenstein opened to just above Babylon? Yeah. Lisa Frankenstein opened bigger than Babylon.
Oh, man. Damien Chazelle was out.
And Lisa Frankenstein cost $13 million?
Yeah.
Babylon cost $100.
I mean, Damien Chazelle was out talking about his career prospects, I think, today, where he was like, I'm working on something, and I don't know if...
he's got that prison suit on. He is in director jail.
Yeah, he got a life sentence.
Yeah.
Maybe on good behavior he can get out on parole, but we'll see.
But, yeah, Lisa Frankenstein, Just kind of a flop.
Yeah, and too bad for a pretty alright movie.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Tucker, let's talk Madame Web.
Let's talk about It. This is the It movie.
The big hullabaloo of the month.
The big ballyhoo.
Yes, really is the big ballyhoo of the month. Making so far a worldwide total of $79 million. It opened to, on the 6th day, if we're being gracious to Madame Web, which everyone should, opened to $26.5 million. From its Valentine's Day opening to the following Monday.
Almost an entire week it made what, I mean, even like the Marvels opened to like 3 times this.
Yeah,
I mean, this is for a superhero genre movie, this is more proof in the pudding that putting out these crap-ass superhero movies does not drive interest.
No.
The interest has not only dropped off significantly in the last year or so, but Madame Web really helps to cement that of, if this is what they're putting out, people are not going to see it, and especially when you compare it to Morbius, which made, to its own lifetime, double what Madame Web has made so far. Now, Madame Web probably has maybe like another 10 million over the course of a couple weeks.
I don't know, because there's, you also look at Morbius and you look at that 162 figure, and you're like, okay, so you have to attribute some of that to the Memebius.
Sure,
it's
probably.
Morbin time.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot, obviously, because a lot of that online stuff is blown out of water if you're in those circles. But I mean, there just wasn't anything like that for Madame Web. There were some people being like, oh man, is Madame Web really that bad? And like, my girlfriend went to go see it second weekend because she heard it was really bad, just to have fun with it. But that's not what most people are doing.
Yeah, and it is a legendary Marvel movie in breaking Marvel's streak.
Right.
This is the first movie in 10 years not to open number 1.
Sony has snatched the crown from Fox.
Yeah, I guess it is from Fox, who no longer exists.
Yes.
So is no longer making lame movies that no one cares about.
Like Fan 4 Stick.
Like Fan 4 Stick. But that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It also opened, in case you were wondering, quite a bit lower than Fan 4 Stick did. I believe that one was at like 25-26 opening weekend. And that's what Madame Web made in 6 days.
Oh, sure, in its 3 day.
Yeah, in its weekend. Yeah.
And do you know what Fan 4 Stick opened behind?
I do indeed, Tucker. Would you like to take a
All right,
guess?
it's time for a game.
2015 action movie. Part of a series, long-running series, of which we just saw a new installment last year.
Oh, last year.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to go like Kingsman or something.
No.
Argyle's a Kingsman movie. Fuck you.
The crowned prince of action cinema headed up this one.
Oh, okay. So was this like Ghost Protocol?
No, 2015. Next one.
Rogue Nation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Open behind Rogue Nation.
I got them mixed up.
Yeah,
my bad.
yes. But yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. A movie that is, it's incredible to me, the vast canyon of quality between those two films, or any films between that and Madame Web or Morbius or whatever. The Mission Impossible movies are really good.
They are good. Yeah.
Tucker, I also saw this quote, and I found it quite hilarious. That there was I think this is just from an anonymous sort of theater employee manager or something.
Yeah, someone who runs a theater chain.
Yeah. On Wednesday night, though, the night that this film opened, you could actually watch advanced purchase sales declining in real time as buyers were refunding their tickets. And to me, Tucker, while that is a very funny anecdote that will probably live as a brand on Madame Web forever, I also find it fascinating as a indicator of the inclination of people to hear that this movie... People have purchased tickets to this film already.
Yes.
They hear that it is bad, and they are refunding their tickets.
Well, it's funny that they purchased the tickets in the first place, because there was never positive buzz towards Madame Web.
Absolutely not.
And it's not like, oh, I need to get my ticket in, or else Madame Web tickets are going to sell out.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure who's pre-purchasing the tickets and then changing their mind about it.
Yeah.
Frankly, that's a cop-out. That's a cowardly move. If you've given your money, if you've decided that you're going to see Madame Web, and you're so certain that you're going to purchase a ticket in advance, who knows how far in advance, it's a cop-out to not follow through with that.
Yeah.
Because you already knew it was going to be bad. The trailers were bad. The press was bad. The reviews were bad.
But yeah, Tucker, I just have to give credence to the public a little bit on, like, actually listening to reviewers and critics.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Well, of course. I don't want bad movies to make money. I'm just saying, it's still a little bit of a cop-out.
Yeah, I know. It's very funny to call people cowards, Tucker, and I stand by that sort of firebrand sort of energy.
Yeah.
This is directed by S.J. Clarkson, who had previously done work on Jessica Jones, and she said that she wanted to do a grounded, female-centric sort of story.
Yeah.
And to her credit, that is what Madame Web is.
Yeah, because it's not particularly fantastical.
No.
And it's there's a lot less fight scenes and a lot less CGI. I mean, I don't quite know where the budget for this movie went to make it cost more than Morbius, which certainly has more special effects.
Yeah.
But it's just a bizarre movie, and also it sits in a weird place as a part of the greater Spider-Man mythos, because this movie was supposed to be in some way connected to at least one of the other Spider-Men. It's set in the time period of the Raimi trilogy.
Yes, it's set in 2003 explicitly.
Sony wanted it to be tied into Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man in some way, and then they also wanted it to maybe be tied into Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and so they had references, they had to reshoot. It was a crazy thing that, like, in some form or fashion, this was supposed to be connected to an actual Spider-Man universe that people care about, but then it's not.
So based on years, I have to assume that they went from, because people have noted this as well, that like a lot of the set dressing and the needle drops are quite like 90s. But then the film was explicitly set in 2003, so it makes me think that they went from all right, this will be connected to Andrew Garfield. Because after the success of No Way Home, I also remember this sort of buzz around Sony was interested in getting Andrew Garfield back to be the Spider-Man for their Venom, Morbius, Madame Web universe. And then I have to assume that Andrew Garfield said, fuck no.
Yeah, of course.
And so like, okay, I technically own Tom Holland's Spider-Man to a certain degree. We can connect that, right? We'll just fast forward a couple of years and it'll line up with his age. And neither seem to be panning out for them.
No. And Madame Web is going to lose them a ton of money, and it's a bad movie, and it's just it's another meme from Sony.
But we're getting Tucker, strap in. We're getting 2 more this year. And then I think, if I'm remembering correctly, just 1 more dated for 2025.
Do we even know what that is?
No, it is untitled Sony Marvel picture coming on June 26th, 2025.
It's so funny that we're a little over a year away from that movie. We don't know what it is. We don't know who the star is. We don't know who the director is. When are they shooting this fucking movie? When are we going to find out this information? It's so funny to me.
Like,
this is a silly little cinematic universe.
Yeah, it's also not like the MCU where it can be like, okay, so they introduced this character, so maybe it'll be, what'll it be? Hypno Hustler?
Christ.
Maybe it'll finally be El Muerto.
Maybe. I would love that, frankly. Frankly, that would make me very happy.
All right, Tucker. Let's talk about the big hoss of the month.
Yeah?
Bob Marley, One Love.
Yeah, I think if we look back at all these numbers, Bob Marley One Love obviously just blows all of that out of the water.
Yes. So this film has grossed so far basically $124 million.
Yeah.
It's the second film of 2024 to reach that $100 million mark. Worldwide, no film has broken it domestically yet.
God, no. Give it 2 weeks, Tanner.
Yeah, as we noted, opened to $46.5 million over that long weekend. It is the highest grossing domestic film of the year as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of close to 100 million domestic. I mean,
it is.
I don't know if it'll crack that, especially now that competition is becoming
we're spooling into movie season
but it's
now.
also a movie with a strong enough cinema score and apparently good enough word of mouth to where it's very different from the other studio movies that are coming out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so it could stick around and get very close. I don't think that it'll pass 100 million, but this is a movie that, when all is said and done, is going to be considered one of the actual reasonable successes of the first chunk of this year, especially when you factor in this will probably be a movie that is very popular on streaming. It does appeal to a demographic that's not like, oh, I must see everything in theaters.
Right.
And it was pulling out a lot of people over the course of its Valentine's Day.
Yeah. It also is quite popular overseas. That should be noted. It's made nearly $50 million overseas. I noticed this. I think I read that it was quite popular in the UK, especially. Obviously, if you had seen the movie Tucker, you would know that that's because Bob Marley spent a lot of his time and had his basically the album that broke him into international stardom while he was in the UK. So he's got a little bit of a cred over there, and obviously some cred in Jamaica. I found this very interesting statistic that it opened to on opening day, February 14th, opened to $100,000 in Jamaica, which doesn't sound like a lot to us.
Jamaica, much smaller country than the United States.
Much smaller country. This broke all sorts of records for the Jamaican box office.
Really? Okay.
And on opening day, accounted for 89% of the market share for the theaters down in Jamaica.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, I don't know anything about this, but it just makes me wonder. Like, I wonder if this usually happens with any big release, or if this one is specifically a lot bigger than. Like, let's just say Star Wars is opening in Jamaica. A similar or slightly later time than the U.S. doesn't really matter. But when that movie comes out, when a Star Wars movie comes out, does that get 90% of the market share, or does it get 75 because maybe...
I have to imagine that even people in Jamaica who don't go to see movies that often hear that they're making a Bob Marley movie.
No, that's probably true, and it also combines with this being a very weak time for other releases, and so popular in his home country, and also what the hell else? Like, what is that other 11%? Who knows?
All Argylle. Big Argylle play.
Maybe.
But anyway, yeah, so this really came out of nowhere for us in particular, I would say. It set a Valentine's Day opening day record.
Oh, really?
It opened to $14 million on Valentine's Day. That set a record. I believe the movie it beat was The Vow, which is something with, like, Channing Tatum. Okay. It's some, like, a Valentine's Day fare.
Yeah. I believe also the 50 Shades movies came out around Valentine's Day.
Yeah. But this it might have been around because this set a Valentine's Day opening record. But yeah, anyway, and this is interesting because it's not like a romance movie. It's a music biopic.
Yeah, they just chose a solid window to open it. Like, not relevant, but just this is the only time this movie would have made this kind of movie.
Has the word love in the title?
That's a great... I might have actually thought about that.
Yeah. Because this movie was actually initially dated for January 12th.
Okay.
And then, got kicked a little bit, partially due to the strikes, partially because The Beekeeper and Mean Girls also opened that day.
That would have been a little too crowded.
Yeah, a little too crowded for early January. Yeah.
For the only two actual movies that released in January.
Yeah. But I say it's a music biopic. It is actually the 7th highest grossing music biopic ever made. Already.
Holy shit.
We're less than 3 weeks from this movie's release.
Yeah.
And then it has I think it is close to surpass. No, it passed Rocket Man. No, hasn't passed Rocket Man yet. Sorry.
It probably will. Is what you're saying.
I think Rocket Man. No, Rocket Man made like 90 domestic.
Let me just look up highest grossing
music biopics. Because obviously the top of the list is like Bohemian Rhapsody,
of course,
Elvis, Straight Outta Compton.
Domestic, correct?
Yeah, domestic.
Okay. Let's make sure that this.
Yeah, this is the list I logged.
Okay,
it's at number 7 right now.
All right, let's just go from 7 to number 1. It's at 8 apparently.
Oh wait, no, because it passed. It will.
Okay, it passed Ray, which is now at number 8. Ray, I can only imagine.
That's a faith-based movie about a Christian singer-songwriter.
Rocket Man currently at 96.
Okay. I don't know.
It'll be a photo finish if anything.
Yeah.
Walk the Line with 119 from 2005. Elvis at 151 domestic, 2022. Straight Outta Compton 161. And Bohemian Rhapsody with 216.
Yes.
Just the undisputed king of the music biopic genre.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it could pass 1, maybe 2 more on that list.
Yeah.
And quite impressive. And this is what I really wanted to talk about here, Tucker, is director Ronaldo Marcus Green.
Yeah.
And also star Kingsley Ben-Adir.
Sure.
2 people who...
Kingsley Ben-Adir's career is much better after this.
I think so. I certainly think so.
A star vehicle of his that was a surprise hit.
Yes. And if this had come out maybe late last year, he might have gotten some Oscar buzz for it. But it also doesn't seem like it was received especially well by critics.
Yeah.
Just average audiences are liking this a whole lot. But Ronaldo Marcus Green, I'm like, you look at his filmography, and obviously he did some work before King Richard, but nothing of particularly high esteem. But then he goes on and directs a Best Picture nominee that wins Best Actor that has a reputation that's not necessarily his fault.
Sure. Yes. With Will Smith, I see what you're saying.
With Will Smith, and then he goes on and directs a music biopic that is a smash success.
This is a 92% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to double check that.
I mean, people love this movie. I don't know who's going to go see this, but people are loving it. But you look at Ronaldo Marcus Green, you're like, his star has got to be rising quite a bit as just like a reliable journeyman in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, but he also clearly has a style making biopics about like underrepresented black celebrities. Or King Richard's not necessarily a celebrity in the same way that Bob Marley is, but he has a wheelhouse and he's been very successful in it. And especially King Richard 2021. That's a weird time to open a movie, but
I believe that was that a Warner Brothers Day and Date thing as well. It was on Max or HBO Max.
That sounds right, actually.
Yeah.
But this is making a lot more money than King Richard. So yeah, I think I don't know if Ronaldo Mercury Screen has another movie in the works right now, but
I looked into it. He's just doing a untitled project with Lionsgate. Is his next thing.
Okay, sure. We'll see.
We'll see.
But interesting guy to follow.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, Tucker. Let's move it on over to Drive-Away Dolls. From a person whose star has risen in Hollywood for quite a couple years, and that is from director Ethan Coen, solo on this John here.
Are you saying that his star has been rising for like 40 years?
I say he's peaked, is what I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
His star is already in the night sky, I suppose.
Yeah.
And those twin stars have broken up for the time being.
No, not anymore. They're coming back.
They're coming back together.
Projects.
Yeah, they're coming back together.
They just took like a little hiatus.
Yeah, not a little hiatus. So like 6 was that 6 years? Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah, but only one
hiatus.
film a piece is what I mean. It's like not like they had significant apart careers.
But yeah, I mean, we could talk about Drive-Away Dolls, but since we're on the sort of Coens already, I did read that like basically Ethan Coen was like, yeah, the splitting up was my idea. I was just getting kind of bored with making movies with the whole process of it. But then the pandemic happened, and he actually, with his wife Trisha Cook, decided to make this film that has been gestating, that they've been working on, had a script sitting around for since 2007.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if one good thing came out of the COVID pandemic,
it's that we got to see Drive-Away Dolls.
Right.
But I think that does actually really make sense in terms of him wanting to shake things up, having a different creative process, a lot smaller budget, being able to finally get a passion project through. I imagine that's like incredibly liberating as a director. And not having that like stick in the back of your head, like, God, I really want this script to be made.
got to dust off that script in the bottom of your desk drawer, you know.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens when the two of them come back together, because clearly something is not right with the two of them apart, because neither of their movies have found success apart.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tragedy of
Macbeth was nominated for a couple Oscars.
It was also an Apple TV Plus thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I really like this movie, but this is like, again, this is like a legendarily terrible opening. This movie is going to lose a lot of money. It's got a reasonable critic score, but a terrible cinema score.
Yeah, people. I mean, audiences just didn't care for this one.
Yeah,
I suppose.
let's double check the Rotten Tomatoes.
Go ahead and check that for me. I mean, we talked about the opening. It was projected by people in the industry to open to 4 and open to like half that. And 4 is already abysmal.
35% on Rotten Tomatoes from the audiences. What's wrong with you guys?
What's wrong with?
Well, they're too busy getting excited for Bob Marley.
I guess that boring movie. I don't know. Sorry if I'm downing on anyone's Bob Marley love, but I didn't care for that one.
This was the only movie of this month that you and I genuinely enjoyed. I mean, everything else we were either at best mixed on, like Lisa Frankenstein, or in the case of Madame Web and Argylle, and for you, Bob Marley One Love, just like bad movies.
Bad movies.
And so it was so refreshing to walk out of Drive-Away Dolls and be like, this is the first good movie of this year. Like, genuinely, really enjoyed it movie.
This film is also one that was delayed in early 2024 by the SAG strikes. Was initially set to open on September 22nd, which would it have done better there? What was going on in September of last year?
September was, I mean, that was like mostly like horror stuff. That's when like
that was like The Nun and
Haunting in Venice was around then. Wasn't that like Expendables? And
let me look at September. Equalizer 3, The Nun 2.
Equalizer 3 holding over from August. Or no, I guess it opened at the beginning of September.
Haunting in Venice, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3.
It would have done fine.
Frankly,
it would have done just about as good in that time period. I mean, you can maybe make the argument that people were more interested in going to theaters then and would have seen the trailer a little bit more. This comes out in a weird place where people are not only not going to the theater, but then that makes movies do worse because people aren't going to the theater to like learn about them.
Right.
So I think it probably would have actually opened a little bit higher if it had opened back then. But this is what happened, and just $2 million. Like we get a lot of movies that were like, man, that opened really low, but this is lower than. This is like on par with the other nonsense horseshit movies. Yeah. And this is not a nonsense horseshit movie.
No, this is from an esteemed Oscar-nominated director. Yeah. That ultimately, I it might be a marketing thing. We both sort of noted the severe lack of marketing for this.
Yeah. So I have a note on my computer that is. Since September 2022, I've been keeping track of domestic openings for movies that I've seen and stuff. And just kind of compare them to one another in like the time period again since I started caring. Tanner, this would be the lowest opening.
Wow.
Since 2022 that I have like keeping track of.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So this is below Silent Night. This is below ISS. Ruby Gillman.
One we just sort of invoked in Babylon there. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. My bottom line here is that, like, I like Driveway Dolls. Yeah. Hopefully it can get a sort of cult following, potentially. Yeah. And I'm excited to see the Coens coming back together, because I think having seen Tragedy of Macbeth and having seen now the solo work of Ethan Coen with Driveway Dolls, I can say that I find that they work best together.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
All right. And the last one we have to talk about opens same day as Driveway Dolls. This is Ordinary Angels. The number 5 domestic opening of the month here, and has made a total of, so far, $8.1 million at the worldwide box office. No international distribution for this one. I had to look up the plot of this one, because typically I have like a vague idea of what movies coming out are about. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I never saw a trailer for this. There's one poster in our theater that's been up for a while, but Hilary Swank?
It's Hilary Swank and Alan Ritchson here, who, obviously is sort of a big TV star with Reacher going on right now. But it's a faith-based film about a snowstorm that hits a town in Kentucky, and Alan Ritchson is a single dad who's got a sick daughter. And so Hilary Swank has got to, like, rally the town to take care of this kid.
Sure.
Yeah. It managed to beat out, other faith-based programming such as The Chosen, that we already recapped at the beginning of the video. That's still they're still putting those out, but Ordinary Angels did beat that out a little bit. But didn't quite live up to the heights of something like cinematic, or the financial heights of something like Jesus Revolution, which came out around this same time last year.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But I had to note as well that, as we said, 84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's really good.
Really high. I mean, an A+ cinema score. I'm like, how do other sort of faith-based films fare when it comes to people or critics reacting to them on Rotten Tomatoes? Tucker, this is as far as I can tell, the highest Rotten Tomatoes score for like a wide a faith-based film that you've heard of. Sure. This is, Tucker, I dug deep. This is tied on Rotten Tomatoes with Martin Scorsese's Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, interesting.
A film that is in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, and from Martin Scorsese.
Yeah. It's like 2% high. I went deep in the benches. Like, Hacksaw Ridge has some like religious themes to it. It's 2% higher than Hacksaw Ridge.
That's crazy.
Nominated for Best Picture.
I mean, we didn't see this movie.
No.
It could be good, frankly. Who the hell knows? But Angel Studios they just keep on chugging.
Well, it's not Angel Studios. This is
it's Lionsgate, isn't it?
Oh, but that's the distributor. I believe the like faith-based production house is called Kingdom, I want to say. Okay. So yeah. But it's doing solidly on a $13 million budget. It'll make that and then some probably. Mm-hmm. So yeah, things are going well. Initially dated for October 13th, and they had to move it for strike reasons. The stars, big stars. That probably helps as well. Hilary Swank, Alan Ritchson, but also they moved because of the Eras tour.
Yeah,
as many were wont to do.
Now, Tanner.
Yeah.
Let's take a look back at January really quick and just see how really the only things that people cared about were Beekeeper and Mean Girls,
right?
Which compared to what we talked about last month, Beekeeper almost doubled that. Mean Girls crossed 100 million domestically. That's got to be Beekeepers worldwide.
Yeah,
right?
these are all worldwide.
Okay,
numbers,
okay.
Yeah.
Night Swim, a couple more, and then ISS and Book of Clarence just out of that's probably like the next week. They made a little bit of money and then left.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's January for you.
That's January. Yeah. I don't know. Beekeeper still manages to hang on to the number one slot of the year so far, so that's pretty good. But Tucker, let's talk about, you teased this a little bit earlier. You talked about the month versus month of 2024 versus 2023, and I just have to take a pause here and sort of look at the difference in like import of release. I would say,
Yeah.
Because we had these are all films that people talked about last year. Knock at the Cabin is M. Night Shyamalan, an MCU film. 80 for Brady was kind of a meme one. Same with Cocaine Bear, and then Winnie the Pooh had some like, what the fuck is this energy? But people just care immensely less about all of these.
Yeah, I mean, February is just a strange place for movies. I mean, it just, people aren't as interested in going out. Quantumania being like kind of the only outlier in terms of like, okay, this feels like something that people would see in other months. But crunching the numbers, with Drive Away Dolls doing heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Month.
Good.
Everything else we had at 5.3 or lower, and that averages out again with Drive Away Dolls doing the heavy lifting to a 4.2, which, Tanner, is easily and by far the lowest average we've ever had for a month of movies since we started tracking this. I did that math somewhere. I can't seem to find it now.
Are you keeping track?
Yeah, let me just February. It's okay. Yeah. So in 2023, nothing went lower than 5.3, which was September. Or no, October we had 5.0, which was there weren't a lot of movies in that month either.
Yeah, that's true.
But 4.2 is almost a full point lower than that. And in January we had a 4.5 this past January. So these 2 months of the year are the lowest average month we ever watched. I mean, I would say easily they're the worst months of movies I've ever experienced.
Yeah, I mean,
and hopefully will ever experience.
Yeah, hopefully we're on the upswing here, but never say never, I suppose.
I guess that's true.
Let's move on. Let's move on and talk about the headlines of the month. Tucker, speaking of things looking up, let's see what things were announced, what things we can look forward to in the years to come. Sony has landed the rights to two 28 Days Later legacy sequels. Cillian Murphy.
What does that mean? Just like a pair of them? Like
they're making two.
Oh, okay.
I believe Danny Boyle?
Yeah.
Danny Boyle is doing one of them, somebody else is doing another.
Sure, okay.
Cillian Murphy in talks to come back as well.
Yeah. Cillian Murphy and Danny Boyle is like, it's their thing together.
Yeah. We've getting a steady sort of slew of Jurassic World sequel headlines, Tucker. So let's sort of just recap them here. So it was announced last month that we would be getting a new Jurassic World film coming out next summer.
Yes.
To which, we were both a little apprehensive about. It's like, that's a little soon to be announcing like a massive tentpole blockbuster, which you have apparently only written the script for.
Yeah.
From David Koepp, by the way, who's a legendary Hollywood screenwriter. Yeah.
So that's the only part that we're like relatively confident on.
Yeah.
At the time, David Leitch was in talks to direct.
Right.
At the time, David Leitch was in talks. So it was like, no, David Leitch. Seems at the moment that Gareth Edwards is going to be directing this soon. God, they need to start this soon.
Yes.
We don't know who the cast is.
Nope.
We don't know when this is starting production. And apparently the tentative title is Jurassic City. I don't really know how accurate that is. But it's just a really funny thing. Yeah. And let's be real, this is not happening at the timeline that they want it to.
No.
I mean, if you're still like floundering on director, because Gareth Edwards is not signed as director, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Yet. But he's in talks, as David Leitch was last month.
Though I think it'd be a smart one to get on because having just done The Creator, he sort of has this reputation now for being kind of he's like a run and gun filmmaker a little bit. He can sort of like shoot some stuff and make some stuff on the skinny,
and on a lower budget.
On a lower budget, that's what I mean by the skinny,
Yeah, but we'll continue to track this.
Yeah, of course.
Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal, and Chris Evans sign on to Celine Song's next film, The Materialists.
Yes.
Is this A24?
No, this is not A24. This is, I want to say Universal, but I can't be 100% sure.
Okay.
If you want to look that up quickly. It might be Sony as well. But yeah, I mean, it's just really cool to see. This is one of many sort of stories that came out about, current Oscar nominees.
Mm-hmm. A24, yeah.
Oh, okay, it is A24.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Oh, I forgot. I thought I had, okay, I don't know. I got that mixed up somewhere. But yeah, it's just cool to see like a huge star vehicle now. Frankly, I mean Dakota Johnson with coming off of Madame Web.
God, can't be better than that. But obviously,
Yeah.
she got out of her contract with her
Previous representation.
yeah, representation. That's the word I was looking for. And it seems like they've gotten her a better project.
Yeah,
Her
hopefully.
new team.
Yeah.
But yeah, good for Celine Song going back with A24. A lot bigger names this
Yep.
time. Disney, though, we'll get on the other scale, has kind of changed the lineup for this year a little bit, and has confirmed some stuff going forward that is sure to make shareholders happy, which is really what this feels like. It's like, oh God, oh no. Breaking Case of Glass sequels to popular shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Moana 2, which we talked about a little bit on our 2024 Look Forward video,
Right.
but is now going to be their November
Thanksgiving, yeah.
animated film. Zootopia 2 is going to be that for the next year. And then Toy Story 3, no, this is not right. Toy Story...
Frozen 3,
sorry.
Toy Story
I
5,
got
and The
mixed
Mandalorian and Grogu.
In 2026. So
Yes.
2026 seems to be maybe the first year that shit's actually going to go right for them. Spike Lee, Denzel Washington, remaking High and Low for A24 and Apple. Interesting team up. I don't know if Apple and A24 have ever worked together before.
I don't think so.
Spike Lee hasn't worked with A24 before.
Nope. No.
Spike Lee and Denzel Washington haven't worked together since I think Inside Man, which was like 2006.
That would check out. Yeah.
High and Low is a Kurosawa movie that was
Right.
from I'm going to say the 50s. I don't really know. I haven't seen
Yeah, I think it's the early 60s. But yeah, I mean
everything is interesting about this.
That's
Could be a really
true.
cool project.
But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the last time Spike Lee did a remake of a famous Asian film.
Old Boy.
Didn't exactly
point.
pan out well. I haven't seen his Old Boy, but from everything I know, it is not good.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
The big news.
Yeah, this is the big news.
This is the big news. This is my favorite news.
Very interesting prospect. That being that Sam Mendes is making not one, not two, not three, but 4 Beatles biopics about every one of those funky little fellas. And they are all releasing in the same year.
Yeah.
Currently positioned for 2027.
Yeah. And my take on this is I'm glad that studios and filmmakers are trying something bold. This is a very, very interesting idea. If it pans out for them, it could be huge. But I also think that this is an unrealistic expectation to shoot 4 films simultaneously. What's the budget and the timeline going to be on that? And then is it really going to be possible to get them all written, casted, shot, edited for all releasing within 1 year? I just don't know if there's any precedent for that happening.
No.
Doesn't mean that it couldn't. But I'm putting my bet now that this plan will change before any part of this project releases. I kind of doubt that it'll end up being actually 4 movies at the end of the day. It might be 2 movies. It might be 1 big movie. And they might come out across multiple years. But
Yeah.
I don't think that this plan will stick
That's fair.
before we see these movies coming out. I don't think the plan will be we were actually getting these all in 2027.
No, yeah. I mean, it's a big swing. That is for certain. We talked about this a little bit more last night, Tucker. Just sort of our thoughts on it. But I don't know. I wish all the best to him. I believe this is an Apple thing as well. So
No, it's not.
But-
It's Sony.
Oh, that's right. Is it? Oh
No,
yeah.
Apple Corp is the rights holder from the Beatles families of the Beatles rights.
I made the same mistake last night.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. But it's Sony and Sam Mendes.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say if it was Apple, then the budget's of no real issue.
That's true. But if it's Sony,
Budget might be an issue.
Yeah.
We'll see. Tucker, the much anticipated film from Oscar winner, Best Picture winner Bong Joon-ho, Mickey 17, has been given a release date of January 31st, 2025.
we'll see about that. I kind of feel like it will end up getting moved forward again.
I don't know. I think they stick. I think they stick here.
That's crazy.
From what I've heard, the rumor mill, for whatever you want to, however much sort of credence you want to give that, is that Warner Brothers is not happy with it.
Sure.
They might be a little too auteur driven for them, but your kids are gonna love it. Yeah, I mean that's just what I've heard, is that maybe Warner Brothers punted this one because they already have a number of potential late season awards players already, and they might think that this one's a little too weird, a little too out there. I don't know. So anyway, speaking of Warner Brothers, I believe this is a coming to fruition of a deal that was cut between them and the Crown Prince of Action Cinema, as I said earlier, Tom Cruise, who penned the deal with Warner Brothers to do some original, some sequel stuff some action films, but he's also looking to work with some auteurs in his own right. One of them that was announced was Alejandro G. Iñárritu.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise will star his next
Interesting
film.
pairing. And I believe also Warner Brothers signed a first look deal with Margot Robbie.
Yes,
as well over
lucky
the course
chap.
of the last few weeks. So they're pulling in some big names. We'll see how that ends up actually panning out. But this is an interesting pairing as of now, from what we know. Cool.
Yeah.
Lionsgate,
Yeah.
in their never-ending drive to get IP that make money for them and can put them on the level of other studios,
Right.
they have signed a deal to make a live-action Naruto film with Destin Daniel Cretton directing. Now, I don't have any particular care for Naruto. There is a really bad trend of adapting anime series to live action. Very, very bad track record.
Yep.
And this last few months has only cemented that.
Yeah.
But I have to say, if you're gonna get anyone to do it, Destin Daniel Cretton's the right guy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, he directed like 2.5 good action scenes in Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so we'll see about this. But it was kind of inevitable, but this pairing at least makes sense in my mind.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not like some schmucko we haven't heard of. It's the drawing the line makes sense.
And this is what Destin Daniel Cretton has signed on to in place of Avengers Kang Dynasty or Avengers 5 that it is now titled apparently. Speaking of, superhero stuff, filming has started on James Gunn's Superman, previously titled Superman Legacy, but as of literally yesterday, they've started filming on that. Released a first look at the Superman logo and everything. I don't know. I mean, it looks like they're on track for their next July release date.
Yeah,
perhaps a little bit more than Jurassic City.
I was about to say the exact same thing.
But
it has been retitled Superman, which is cool. Fine. Yeah, gives it like a little bit of pomp, I guess.
Yes.
We very rarely get movies that are just titled the name of the superhero anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, The Flash last year. Actually, no, The Flash, The Blue Beetle. Those are just the names.
Yeah.
But
we've already had several Superman movies.
Yes.
So it's it's a bit of a shot call, I think, from James Gunn to say that this is going to be the definitive.
This is the superhero movie.
Yeah.
Or the Superman movie. And then finally, new film from Daniels.
Yeah.
Working with Universal, slated for June 2026.
That's right.
That's a while from now.
It is.
But they need to take their time. They're choosing their projects wisely. Teaming with Universal over A24, which is where all three of their other movies have been from.
Oh, three.
Because Daniel Scheinert did a movie called The Death of Dick Long with A24. In
That's
2020.
Okay.
But Universal, and also, by the way, I believe Universal is referring to this as an event movie.
Yes,
so
it's a Daniels event film.
Who the hell knows what this is going to be?
I think this is hot take. I think this is going to be a big deal, and that it's going to be a big production. I think they're taking a big swing with this one, stamping out a summer date this far in advance. I think they're, and as well as the Daniel saying like,
and
hey,
also with Universal,
and
Universal's the least shitty of the major companies
right
now.
I think the Daniels also looked at what they were making, and they're like, hey, this is probably a little bigger than A24 can handle.
Sure, yeah.
So
this is exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
But Tanner,
yeah,
we finally have a real movie month.
God, it feels so good, doesn't it, Tucker? It feels really good.
And it's not even like I think that Godzilla X Kong or Ghostbusters Frozen Empire are going to be good.
Yeah.
But like, they're real studio movies.
Right.
We're gonna have an actual top 5.
So we
survived 2 straight months of whatever horseshit this was.
We are recording this on opening day of Dune Part 2, and so there's nothing else really releasing on this day, that is, other than the biggest movie of maybe the year we'll see. But also releasing this month are Kung Fu Panda and Imaginary, releasing on March 8th. Little bear double feature.
Sure.
Love that.
And Love Live Bleeding comes out that day.
Yes, and then it goes. It opens limited March 8th, and then it goes wide on March 15th, or wider, I suppose I should say.
Yeah.
Also, March 15th is Arthur the King and the American Society of Magical People, magical African Americans. Just a weird, like, sort of in between week between massive blockbusters, I would say. And then March 22nd, we get Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a direct sequel to Afterlife from a couple years ago, and a Sydney Sweeney horror film called Immaculate.
Yeah,
I'm
it looks
excited
pretty good from the trailer.
It looks quite good, actually. And
end out the month with Monster Fight.
with a big old monster fight in an A24 film.
Yep.
So, how about that?
I'm so happy.
It feels so good.
It feels right.
I feel the warmth of the, it's sort of like seasonal depression, but for movies.
Sure.
The sun is coming out. I feel a little bit sunny, a little bit warmer. Feel a little bit more
more
positive.
to talk about.
Exactly. Now, Tucker, I was going through today, this afternoon, before we recorded, and updating my predictions, and it wasn't until I went to go plug them in on the slide here that I was like, oh, Tucker and I will have the exact same ones.
Dune Part 2,
Yep.
Godzilla x Kong, Kung Fu Panda 4, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and Arthur the King.
Yep.
We'll see.
Now, Tucker, why aren't we putting Imaginary in here? If we just want to do a brief discussion.
I think it just doesn't. I just don't think it has any particular sauce. I mean, the trailer's been out for a while, but no one's really talking about it.
It doesn't feel like it's moving the needle at all.
Yeah,
does it?
and I feel like Arthur the King appeals to such a different demographic.
Yeah,
that,
I would agree.
And Mark Wahlberg is like the biggest star in this list.
Yes,
and this is a star
100%,
vehicle.
yeah.
So I just expect that to appeal to its own demographic. I mean, we'll see it kind of more as a joke than anything.
Yeah.
But I also just think that Imaginary is just going to be a night swim. Like it's just kind of like a forgettable Blumhouse filler.
Yeah, for sure. And then cause I also thought about who is really going to the theater on March 8th to see
in week 2 of Dune 2.
Exactly, that's my point.
Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yeah,
dominating the screens.
Yeah, to be like, I won't go see Dune 2 either for the first time or see it again, as many people probably will. Instead, I'm gonna watch Imaginary.
Yeah.
I don't see any.
And also, I was just thinking about this with those Dune 2 and Kung Fu Panda 4 being the first big draws of the year.
Yeah.
How many screens is Imaginary really gonna get?
I don't know.
All these theaters are gonna want to get as much money as they can.
Yeah.
And you get the most money by putting the new DreamWorks movie and the new blockbuster in your fucking screen. So.
All right, Tucker. Let me slam down some numbers before we wrap it up here. Dune Part 2. We are in the opening weekend. It's Friday that we're recording this on. Just peeling back the curtain a little bit. I am saying, Tucker, $84 million this weekend.
Yeah.
Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Excuse me.
You almost messed up there.
Almost messed up. I'm gonna say 50 mil.
Okay.
And it feels nice also, I'll just say, to be like, hey, this movie's gonna open the biggest, and then not having to do a $40 million canyon down to number 2 or something. Just like Godzilla x Kong at 50 million. I'm gonna say Kung Fu Panda 4. I'm gonna say it's gonna overperform a little bit. I think there'll be some families that are starved for kids' entertainment, so I'm gonna say $42 million.
Okay.
And then Ghostbusters.
And I will say, I do predict that Kung Fu Panda 4 will outgross Godzilla x Kong in the long run.
Yeah,
I think
long
Godzilla x Kong, just as an event movie, will have a bigger opening.
I would say so. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I'm going to say is going to underperform with $35 million. And then Arthur the King, I'm going to say is going to round it out. Just get some casuals in and go for about 15 opening weekend.
I think all those numbers sound about right.
Yeah.
But Tanner, we actually found a lot to talk about with all this stuff. We were able to spin some narratives, spin a little bit of yarn.
Spin some webs.
Oh, yes. Our web connects them all.
That's true. All of these shitty February releases, our web connects them all.
Our web being Backlot Banter.
That's true.
Thank you for joining us, guys.
Thank you for being tangled in our web.
And get ready for March when we actually have shit to talk about.
Finally.
We're going to do a 3-hour episode if we finally have a bunch of movies to talk about.
Some blockbusters that are coming out. Finally. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.